Week 3, there's so much injury news, and it's still not enough. I tried to wait, but we still going to break it down, and you're going to have to pay attention Sunday morning, all right? Let's get into it. Hey, yo! Welcome back to the channel. It's your boy Chef D, and I'm here to give you the winning ingredients for your Week 3 breakdown. But before I deep dive into that, do not forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you follow me on Instagram and Twitter at MetsNetsJetsD. Don't forget about the TikTok at Chef_D91. And don't forget about the Patreon if you want more DFS, betting, and fantasy football advice. All of those links will be provided down below. Now let's get things started. And usually I go through positions, but I'm going to start with that last. We're going to focus on stacks for this Week 3. I'm going to give you 6 stacks that I like. I got some that are going to be chalk, and I got 2 that are going to be sleeper stacks that you're going to need to focus in on. And then after I go through the stacks, I'm going to give you value plays from quarterback, running back, wide receiver, and tight end position that you're going to need to throw in to your stacks as well. Okay, this is the way that you get to the top of these leaderboards, top of these tournaments that you're entering, especially the low volume ones. All right, millionaire maker type of tournaments, gotta try to stay away from those. Of course, throw in a couple bullets there, 1, 2, 3 lineups in there. Don't focus your whole bankroll on those millionaire tournaments. It's just too many people. All right, you're throwing in 10 lineups to 200, 300,000 type of tournament. It's not going to equal very well for your bankroll. The payout structure doesn't benefit you. You need to focus in on the smaller tournaments. You and 1,000 other people. You can beat 1,000 people. You cannot beat 100,000 people plus on a consistent basis. All right, you'd either have to be 100% right or you're going to have to be 100% wrong. All right, so let's get into these stacks. Let's start off with the chalk game of the week, and that is going to be the Detroit Lions going up against the Minnesota Vikings. That game is right here starting at 1 o'clock. There's a ton of high volume games for this 1 o'clock slate. If we're looking at the Las Vegas odds right now, we can see this Detroit Lions and Minnesota Vikings games is at 52 points. So this is what you want to look at. High scoring environment. 2 teams have big potential of putting up huge points. And what we're going to focus in here on, quarterback stacks. All right, stacks either go with the Cousins is a little more expensive at 6,700. I don't mind going that way, but Jared Goff is most likely going to have a little bit of a lower ownership, and he can still bring you high upside. Okay, so we have both quarterbacks who I like, and yes, Kirk Cousins had a poor performance. That was in prime time. He sucks at prime time. We already seen the stats, him against the spread, playing outside of that 1 o'clock slate. He's back at 1 o'clock. Home game against Detroit Lions. This should be a bounce back game for Kirk Cousins and Jared Goff as well. Jared Goff comes into this matchup coming off week 2 performance, 36-27, came through with 26 fantasy points. All right, so if you want to have those Justin Jefferson type of lineups, you're going to need to sacrifice some salary in some parts. Okay, so you can get a lot of exposure to this game stack going with Jared Goff, pairing it with DeAndre Swift. Obviously, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be our main focus on the Detroit Lions as their pass catchers. This man has back-to-back games of 12 targets. We know Jared Goff, how he links up with a one wide receiver. He did it with the LA Rams. Now he's doing it with the Detroit Lions. This was an outstanding draft pick. Amon St. Brown is really taking his game to a whole nother level. You need to have him in each and every one of your lineups until he gets to that $8,000 salary. This is similar to what we saw in Cooper Kupp. All right, we got to believe it. All right, we see the production, we see the targets, we see the air yards. This guy is that guy. All right, Amon-Ra St. Brown is going to be this year's Cooper Kupp. Okay, it's fitting that it's just another LA Ram player, former LA Ram player. Okay, now he's found his guy in Amon-Ra St. Brown. I love him as a lock. So I'll in some of these lineups, after I go through the stacks, I'll keep the main guy who I really love for most of these games, and it'll pretty much build a lineup for itself. And it's up to you if you want to throw that in there yourself. So if we're doing the Detroit Minnesota stack, love Swift, love Amon-Ra St. Brown. He has the Q tag Swift, but he is being lightly worked out, just making sure that he gets through the week. You don't have to give him a full workload of practice during the week. He's just coasting through, make sure he's 100% for Sunday. DeAndre Swift is a game breaker. We saw his potential in week 1, 29 fantasy points. Off limited snaps in week 2, he still came through with 16 fantasy points. They nurtured him back to health, and he's going to be a full go for Sunday. So love DeAndre Swift, love Amon-Ra St. Brown. Other cheaper options that we can look at on the Detroit side can be DJ Shark. He's going to be lesser owned in the game. That's going to be a shootout. This is the guy that's going to get those deep routes. All right. Amon-Ra St. Brown is short intermediate. Deep routes will be DJ Shark. He can definitely save you some salary there at $5,100 if you want access to this Detroit Lions game. Other guys you can look at will be Josh Reynolds, who's another outside wide receiver that can stretch the field. But if we're going to bring it back with some Minnesota guys, the guys that we're going to look for will obviously be Justin Jefferson. He's going to be high owned, but this is going to be a game he definitely should bounce back from. He saw Darius Slay coverage in week 2 against Philadelphia, 6 for 48 on 12 targets. All right, the cornerbacks on the Detroit Lions side are absolute garbage. Jeff Okudah has still not reached his full potential, and Justin Jefferson is going to have a field day in this game going up against the Detroit Lions. So he's going to be a smash that we should play in majority of our lineups. Other wide receivers will be between Adam Thielen, who had received 7 targets last week, former favorite red zone target for Kirk Cousins, so you got that connection there. Hasn't been very productive this year as of yet, so we will see what happens this Sunday, but he's someone to consider. We got Adam Thielen, and if you want to go a little bit cheaper, KJ Osborne is someone I like that can definitely win on one-on-one coverage, especially going up against these second, third, fourth type of DBs that they have on the Detroit Lions side. I think he usurps Adam Thielen as we go along through the season. So maybe a pop-up game. He's going to be someone no one's looking at, but definitely has upside. KJ Osborne at 4,900. Some of the tight ends that we can look at in this game stack that you want to focus it on will be between TJ Hockenson, who has a Q tag, listed as questionable. They're bringing him along very similarly to DeAndre Swift, making sure he's 100% coming through for that game tomorrow on Sunday. So Hockenson can be an option, but someone that's gonna be a little bit he's being a little more higher on after the game that he had against Philadelphia. 5 receptions, 8 targets, 36 yards, and a touchdown. Is Irv Smith. All right, bounced back from week 1, but we saw the fact that he was utilized in the slot. So Irv Smith has become a little more of the cheaper but chalk tight end as a lot of lineup builds are projecting. So Irv Smith might be chalk. If you want to go a little bit contrarian, then you would go with TJ Hockenson in this game stack. But I love either side of the ball for this particular game. The next stack we're going to focus in on will be the Kansas City Chiefs going up against the Indianapolis Colts. All right, we have Patrick Mahomes going up against Gus Bradley, the defensive coordinator for the Colts, and this is a very familiar sight for Patrick Mahomes. All right, if we're just looking at the stacks Patrick Mahomes had last year against Gus Bradley, and Gus Bradley was the defensive coordinator of the Las Vegas Raiders. We go to Patrick Mahomes, DKP, that's Draftkings points by game log versus Raiders last 2 games, and this was last season. He came through with 20 fantasy points and 39.2, so he's very familiar with this defensive coordinator, and he usually tends to ball out against him. Very similar coverage he sees on a repetitive basis. Patrick Mahomes is going to be one of the key guys we're going to stack in some of your lineups. All right, Patrick Mahomes, we're going to pair him with we got a couple of options here. We got Juju Smith-Schuster, who's got a ton of targets in week 1, fell a little bit short in week 2, but these are the guys that are going to get most of the snaps. It's Juju and Marquez Valdez-Scantling that are getting over 80% of the snaps and 80% of running routes. All right, so those are the two main guys, and you got Hardman and you got Sky Moore filling in sparingly. Okay, they do have other options like Justin Watson that might come into effect when you get closer to the red zone, but the main guys, you want to stick to Juju and MBS. A lot of people are away from these guys because they have not performed yet, and they performed poorly last week, so you can definitely get some value from these two wide receivers. If I had to choose one, I think Juju Smith-Schuster has a bounce back game against Indianapolis, against Kenny Moore in the slot, who has struggled this year. So Juju Smith-Schuster, MVS, other ways we can get to the stack would be Mecole Hardman, who can stretch the field. Already has a touchdown this season. Got one touchdown in week 1 against Arizona. That was a cupcake matchup, but not a lot of usage. All right, you see 3 receptions, only 16 yards. He was lucky that he got that touchdown. So I want to focus on Juju. I want to focus on MVS, and obviously we're going to focus in on Travis Kelce. All right, that's going to be, obviously he's going to be one of the higher owned tight ends at 7,900 in this matchup. Kelce hasn't missed a beat. All right, against the Chargers, even against coverage that he was seeing against the top tier Chargers secondary, it still was solid. Didn't get in the end zone, but we saw the upside in week 1, 8 for 121 and a touchdown. So I'm loving Travis Kelce. Pairing that with Juju Smith-Schuster. If you want to go even heavier in the stack, you'll throw MBS, but you don't have to. And the guys we're going to bring it back with, they're going to be Jonathan Taylor. Jonathan Taylor, this is the key component for the Colts to even have a chance to win this game. Jonathan Taylor is the X factor. He's going to have to get acclimated in the run game and slow down KC's offense, and they're going to have to utilize him in the receiving game. We saw that in week 1 with 4 receptions on 7 targets. We need more exposure from him. They're going to have to utilize Nyheim Hines. A lot of people were on him last week with all the injuries to the wide receivers. He could be a sneaky guy that could go off and get a touchdown in week 3. With all the wide receivers out, he did see 4 receptions, 5 targets for 37 yards. So you see the exposure. They said they were going to use him more, and we're seeing it on a more consistent basis. But Nyheim Hines 100% should have went off last week. This would be a perfect spot for him to get a cheap touchdown and definitely go over his salary and definitely reap value. So he's a sneaky guy you can go to, Nyheim Hines. We have Jonathan Taylor at 9K. The wide receivers, and it's going to be clear cut. Michael Pittman is back and healthy. He's bringing in full practices and he's ready to go for Sunday. And this is a prime matchup. We saw week 1, 9 receptions, 121 yards and a touchdown. Was injured last week, but he's back. So we can go back to Michael Pittman and we can go after him is the question mark. Okay. Ashton Dulin stepped up and was fitting at 5 receptions for 79 yards. But also Alec Pierce is back, and he's going to be healthy for Sunday. If I had a choice, I think Dulin earned his spot. And if we're looking at a punt play at the flex position, someone to throw in that's below 4,000, I think Ashton Dulin is going to be someone that we can look at as access to this game that's going to be high scoring. If we're looking at Vegas here, this game between the Colts and where's the Colts? Boom. Colts and Chiefs is at 50.5. So we got 2 games well above 50 points, and we're going to need access to these players. And if we can get cheap access right here in Ashton Dulin, who I think proved himself with everyone out, I think he's earned more snaps. We saw it week 1, he had 3 for 46. We saw an increase 5 for 79. I think he can get in the end zone against KC as well. Ashton Dulin is definitely someone sneaky, very sneaky to have in your punt range of players. All right, definitely someone to keep in your pocket. All right, I'm loving him at 3,900. All right, the tight ends for Indianapolis I want to stay away from because it's pretty much split between Mo Alley-Cox and Granson. So you're really flipping a coin between those 2 guys. All right, so we're done with the KC Indianapolis stack. Let's move over to Buffalo, Miami. Now, Everyone's going crazy for this one in particular because of what we saw Miami was able to produce against the Baltimore Ravens. But I'm here to give you a wake-up call, okay? Miami faced a defense that was severely injured, and especially in that secondary, they were going up against a ton of rookie cornerbacks, and obviously you have Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. This is going to be different for Buffalo. Buffalo highly motivated, and they have a great history of dominating the Dolphins. They average over 30 points a game against the Miami Dolphins in the last 6 matchups. So we see dominance here. And the Buffalo defense, despite losing Micah Parsons, and we have Ed Oliver, it's still too much. Obviously, McDermott and that defense is going to put up a very solid game plan to stop and hold down Jalen Waddle and Tyreek Hill. All right, I have full confidence in the Buffalo Bills, and this is not the Baltimore Ravens and what we saw. This is a totally different team here. I don't see Tua Tagovailoa going for 29 fantasy. What was his fantasy production? Let's see. 43.9. That's not happening against Buffalo. I can promise you that. I can promise you that Tua Tagovailoa is not going to get 43 fantasy points against the Buffalo Bills. I can promise you that. So I think this is more of a one-sided affair, even though a lot of people are going to go to this. They're going to get creative. They're going to go Tua. They're going to go Tyreek Hill and Waddle, bring it back with Diggs or Gabe Davis. I might want to stay on just the Buffalo side. I love Josh Allen this week. Any means necessary, how he's going to put up fantasy points. It could be with his arm with 317 yards passing. It could be with his legs, what we saw in week 1 with 10 for 56 and a touchdown. Josh Allen is just the best quarterback in the league right now. So Josh Allen is a mainstay at 8,200. Definitely want to have him in my stacks. I don't want to get cute and go with Tua because Tua is going up against Buffalo defense, and it doesn't matter if the guys that I just mentioned were out. They're still a dominant defense. So Josh Allen, I want to pair him with Diggs is going to be chalk because after that game that he had 12, 15, 148, and 3 TDs, still a solid play at 7,700, but he's going to need to bring in 30 fantasy points plus. He's going to have to do what he did in week 1. So I have no problem going to him, but if you want to be a little bit different, people might have forgot, but Gabe Davis is one of the main red zone guys for the Buffalo Bills and for Josh Allen. So we saw in week 1 18 fantasy points. Let's not forget what Gabe Davis is capable of. So loving him at 6,300 if you want to save some salary in this game stack. Miami will try to keep it competitive. And I would bring that back. If I wanted to be cheaper, I would go with Waddle. If I wanted to be a little more expensive, then I would do Tyreek Hill and then pair it with some other value guys. Maybe you want to add in another stack from another one of the high scoring games like that Detroit, Minnesota. Maybe you want to throw in KJ Osborne, whose salary, but you have exposure to that game. Maybe you want to throw in a DeAndre Swift in this. You can. It is possible, and then you have to save salary at defense and flex. All right. So in this particular Buffalo-Miami game, I think it's going to be one-sided. But I don't want to have a full game stack in this one because of what I think is going to happen. I want to have a one-off from that Miami, and it's going to be between Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. Let's move over to the 4th stack, and we have the Los Angeles Rams going up against the Arizona Cardinals. If we go over here, we can go both ways on this one. We can go Kyler, or we can go Matt Stafford, because we know that how bad the Arizona Cardinals defense is, just giving up a ton of points. So I have confidence in Stafford. We saw him have a bounce back game, still through turnovers against the Atlanta Falcons defense, which is a little more concerning. Barely got you there with 20.8 fantasy points. So if I really had to lean towards someone, I might lean more to Kyler because Kyler has to do everything. So Matt Stafford is at a nice price at 6,500. He's notable. Definitely keep him in your pool. But someone that's going to have big upside is going to be Kyler Murray, okay? I understand the Rams defense, but for the Cardinals to stay competitive, even if it's a blowout, it's Kyler all by himself, pretty much. As we saw against KC, in a blowout of more than 20 points. He still put up 20.6 fantasy points. We saw 2 touchdowns, and we saw rushing. Okay, we saw 5 carries to 29 yards, and then against the Raiders, he came through with 277 yards, 1 TD, and chipped in with rushing 20 yards and a touchdown. He's literally putting the team on his back because Cliff Kingsbury cannot drop anything. All right, it's like, hey, Kyler, do what you can. Please score for us, please. So, fine, we're gonna take that and take advantage of it, and we see him in this environment that he's gonna have to put up points. Rams are going to score at will, and Arizona is going to have to compete with that. Kyler is going to be the guy, one of the mainstays. He's going to be right below Josh Allen in my rankings at quarterback because of the fantasy production, the dual eligibility that he's going to bring to the game with throwing and rushing capability. So in this game stack, Kyler Murray is a love. We're going to pair him with 2 particular guys, and I can go with a full game stack here. I really see this one going very, very high scoring. And Marquise Brown is yet to go off, like really go off. He's been solid. He got you a touchdown in week 1 and brought you double-digit fantasy points in week 2. The speed of Marquise Brown is going to be something that's going to take it next level. And the deep ball from Kyler Murray, that connection is going to make magic. And it can be this week in the game that's going to be very, very back and forth. So Marquise Brown at 6,000, I definitely like. And if we're going to look for a cheaper option, we got more than one more guy left. We got Greg Dortch right here, who's going to take over for Rondale Moore. A lot of people are waiting on Rondale Moore, but he hasn't done anything. Greg Dortch is doing what Rondale Moore is supposed to do. So you can wait on Rondale Moore all you want. They have their slot guy right here in Greg Dortch. Okay, Andy Isabella was supposed to be that guy. No. Rondale Moore was supposed to be that guy. No. Greg Dortch is being productive. 7 for 9 for 63 in week 1 and 4 for 55 with the touchdown in week 2 at $4,300 in salary. People are going to go back to him. Fine, I'll take that chalk at $4,300 because I know the game environment. I know he's going to get utilized, and there's a ton of targets to go around, and it's a funnel, all right, in Arizona. It's Marquise Brown, it's Greg Dortch, and it's the tight end that we have right here in Zach Ertz. Zach Ertz is being fed right now. We saw him in week 1 with a touchdown, over 11 fantasy points, and in week 2 against the Raiders, 8 for 11 for 75, 11 targets. Okay, that is, and this man is going super late. He went super late in drafts, around 11, round 12. No one wanted him, but as long as DeAndre Hopkins is out and he's not in this offense, they have a big funnel in Arizona. It's something that we can trust and look forward to. So Zach Ertz at 4,600 is someone I'm going to lean upon. All right. Obviously, for the Rams, who are we going to bring it back with? We have $9,900 salary Cooper Kupp. Now, we need to make sure if we're playing Cooper Kupp that he goes all the way off. We have to have 30 plus fantasy points. If he has a regular 20 fantasy point game, it is not enough. Can he get you there? Of course he can. You're going to have different lineups with him in and with him out, just in case, because you're paying a ton of salary for Cooper Kupp at the wide receiver position, and he has to come through. So I like him at 9,900 if you want cheaper exposure. We have Allen Robinson right here, who got the little bit of the squeaky wheel, got a little bit of the oil there. 4 receptions, 5 targets, 53 yards, and a touchdown. Got double-digit fantasy points. A bounce-back game from what happened in Buffalo. It pretty much was, stop Allen Robinson and let Cooper Kupp eat in the middle. It didn't matter because the Buffalo Bills just destroyed him anyway. So this is how dominant that team is and how smart they are. So they're going to bring that same scheme over to the game against Miami. All right. So that's why I'm warning you on that. But Allen Robinson, if you want cheap exposure, 5,700. I like him as a bring back in this particular game. But I'm leaning more to the Arizona side if I wanted a stack. Running backs wise, Henderson is in a good spot. Cam Akers still hasn't been efficient, even though he's getting a little more carries, but the guy that they trust in passing down situations is Darrell Henderson. So he's getting carries, he's getting third down work. I'm utilizing him over Cam Akers easily, okay, if I'm choosing a running back in this game. And James Conner, we don't know yet. If he's out, he's a true game time decision. This opens up salary for between Darrell Williams at 5,100 and Eno Benjamin at 4,700. The guy I would like to choose in this particular format, if James Conner is out, we're gonna go with Eno Benjamin at 4,700. He has the upside as the pass catching back. All right, I want someone that's gonna run and is gonna bring PPR upside, and that's Eno Benjamin over Darrell Williams. Okay, so that's the guys we're going to focus on in this particular stack. Love the Arizona side. Bring it back with one or two guys from the Rams. And you got a solid stack there. Let's move over to the two sneaky stacks that I have on this slate. The first one will be the Houston versus Chicago game. I know, a lot. Very shocking. Houston versus Chicago. And this has some potential. Hopefully, despite what the over-under says, if you're looking at Vegas, this is at a 39. It's gone up. It was at 38, and we see it move up to 39 now. And this has potential. All right, we have Justin Fields, who has the rushing upside, and everyone's down on him because he's only thrown 190 yards the whole season, the first two games. All right, first of all, week 1, throw that away. Okay, that was a monsoon. And he actually threw more yards in that weather than what he did against Green Bay. Green Bay was mad and angry, and they bounced back against the Chicago Bears, who they always dominate. So this is something we already knew. So they're going to get stomped week 2. In week 1, it was bad weather. So it's a wash. So that does not stop the fact that Justin Fields is a dual threat quarterback. We're going to see him throw. We're going to see him run a lot. He almost had 2 touchdowns last week against Green Bay. They took one back, which should have been a touchdown. So at 5,600, you got a value QB right there. If you want to go the other way in Davis Mills, I'm liking the production I'm seeing out of him. He's looking like one of the better quarterbacks out of his draft as well. No interceptions yet this year. Has been moving the ball fine, not making mistakes. He has solid wide receivers, and now he has a running game. So Davis Mills at 5,000 is someone we can go to as another cheap option quarterback. At that running back position, we got 2 studs here in great matchups. We got David Montgomery, who's being utilized. Luke Getsy is going to run the ball at a very high clip. And we saw 122 yards against Green Bay. Now he's going up against the Houston Texans run D, and this is a perfect spot for him at 5,900. So I have no problem going with David Montgomery. And then Dameon Pierce, he is the number 1 running back. I don't know what they did week 1, but they corrected that in week 2. He saw the bulk of the carries, 15 for 69. He had a reception as well. And this is going to be a game environment where they're going to get him utilized, open things up for Davis Mills going up against the Chicago Bears defense, who's not that good. All right, who's not that good. Like I said, poor performance. Well, they had the weather in week 1, and then week 2 they got stomped. So this is not a good defense in Chicago. All right, so Dameon Pierce, very solid matchup at 5,000. Love both of those guys if you're looking for cheaper running back options. And I have more value, guys, once we get to that as well. Now, the wide receivers, bounce back for Darnell Mooney. The most talented wide receiver is Darnell Mooney in this game. The most consistent wide receiver is Brandon Cooks. So you want exposure to both of these guys. Cooks is getting double-digit targets each and every week. We need him to get in the end zone. He's not usually that guy that gets in the end zone, but he's a guy that's going to get receptions, all right? He's your PPR guy. Darnell Mooney is the touchdown guy. He has done nothing yet this season, all right? Like I said, bad weather in week 1. Week 2, he's going up against the elite secondary in Green Bay. Green Bay angry, and definitely proved the point that they own the Chicago Bears. So it's expected. Darnell Mooney is going to be a huge bounce back game for Darnell Mooney. No one's going to have him. He's going to be a mainstay in my lineup, all right? So 2 mainstays I got so far. Amon-Ra St. Brown and save salary there in Darnell Mooney. I got 2 guys for you that like throw in like a little mock lineup at the end. So Darnell Mooney, I love at 5,300. Brandon Cooks, I love as well. Nico Collins saw a target bump in week 2 against Denver. Obviously, if things aren't going smooth with the Brandon Cook side, Nico Collins was emerging anyway in preseason. We saw him finish strong last year, and this is their field stretcher. This is their big wide receiver. Go down the field, get the ball, go up and get it. Nico Collins at 4,000 is someone that I see can have double-digit fantasy points in this game going up against Chicago. So I'm loving him at his price. If we're looking past that, there's no one else at the wide receiver position. If we're looking at tight ends, it's time for Cole Kmet to wake up. Okay, it's time for him. He has 2 targets in 2 games. All right, this is going to turn around in week 3. I promise you. Cole Kmet is too talented. It's a guy that had 60 receptions, over 600 yards last year. He's been utilized in this offense. He has no stats. I promise you. He might be my favorite tight end this week. Because I know no one's going to have him. And if he goes for 10 plus, it's going to be a steal. He's going to rock you up in your tournaments because no one is going to have him. So I love Cole Kmet as well. And that's my sneaky stack number 1. Number 2, we're going to clear out this Houston and Chicago game. My last stack that we should look at for this week will be the New York Jets going up the Cincinnati Bengals. We got bounce back performances everyone's waiting for. We got Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow has played poorly so far this year, has been holding on to the ball, getting sacked. And as you see, all these fumbles. He has 3 fumbles in the first 2 weeks. Poor performance that we saw against Dallas, who dominated him. Joe Burrow only had 1 touchdown, and he threw 4 picks in week 1. So this is going to be a bounce back performance that a lot of people are waiting for. At 6,600 in salary, definitely someone you could look towards. And at the wide receiver, obviously, we're going to pair him with either Jamar Chase is probably going to go against either DJ Reed or rookie, and Sauce Gardner. And we also have T. Higgins. Okay, both of these guys should have great games. And if we're going to bring it back in this particular stack against the Jets, let's clear out these guys. Everyone's going to be on Garrett Wilson. All right. The game that Garrett Wilson had was great. It was a perfect scheme because of the cornerbacks from the Cleveland Browns and Denzel Ward and Greg Newsome. Those 2 outside guys were solid. That's why Corey Davis didn't do anything. Elijah Moore really didn't do anything besides that it wasn't blown coverage. It was a great scheme by the Jets. They ran the same play 3 times and just changed it on the 3rd time. Instead of having Corey Davis run a post route, he ran a go route. So that's why he was wide open and everyone was confused because they saw that play 3 times in a row. So Garrett Wilson was the 3rd wide receiver, and he was facing the weaker of the cornerbacks, and he was peppered. All right, that was the opening. Against the Cincinnati against the Cleveland Browns. That was the opening. So Garrett Wilson had his game. That's great, but do not forget who the number 1 wide receiver is, and that is Elijah Moore. Elijah Moore still got targeted last week, as you see, 5 targets, 41 yards, and he's seeing the most routes run on the team. Okay, he's getting the most routes. He's getting 90% of the snaps. All right, so this is the guy you want to focus on, the dude that's going to be on the field. I love Elijah Moore for this week. And you can also throw in Garrett Wilson as well as a guy that you want to bring back in this game. They're going to utilize him. He's earned more snaps in this offense. And for the tight end position, Jets tend to struggle against tight end. Hayden Hurst has been a very good pickup for the Cincinnati Bengals after they let go of CJ Uzomah. He's been getting solid production, 5 receptions in back-to-back weeks. On the Bengals side, I would go to him. And CJ Uzomah is now back and healthy. He's going to be in his 2nd game with the New York Jets. And this is going to be a little revenge matchup going up against his former team. So if you really wanted to punt, I wouldn't do it. We'll go with CJ Uzomah, but I definitely do have to bring him up. If I'm choosing the tight end from either side, it's going to be Hayden Hurst. All right. So those are going to be the stacks we're going to focus on. KC and Indy, Buffalo and Miami. That's more one-sided. Detroit against Minnesota. LA Rams against the Arizona Cardinals. Houston Texans going against the Chicago Bears, who's no one going to have. And the New York Jets going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. So the one-off guys that we're going to look at before we end this video at the quarterback position. Let's pop up everyone here. We're going to look at value guys. So Derek Carr is someone we can look at going up against Tennessee. He needs to perform, okay? 18, 16 fantasy points, that's not good. You have a number one wide receiver in Davante Adams, and you've yet to put over 20 fantasy points. That is embarrassing, and you're 0-2. This is a perfect matchup against Tennessee, who has lost a ton of guys. Harold Landry, they lost guys in cornerbacks, they lost guys on the defensive line, and this is a perfect matchup that things can get going with Derek Carr and Davante Adams. If you're going to pay it for Davante Adams, I love him this week as well, going up against Tennessee's defense. So I like Derek Carr as well. So 5,900, someone that has potential to get over 20 fantasy points. He's someone that you can definitely look at. Same goes for another cheap quarterback that we like is Ryan Tannehill. Tannehill is fighting for his career. Can we say career? He's fighting for a starting job pretty much. So decent performance in week 1 against the Giants. We saw 266 yards, passing 2 TDs. We saw a little bit of a rushing, 2 attempts, but the blowout performance against Buffalo, because Buffalo is so dominant, he needs to bounce back in this game. And he has Malik Willis breathing down his neck. So we can see a bounce back performance from Ryan Tannehill. And this is why I like one of the guys when we get to wide receiver who I think he's going to connect with for this particular week. So we got some punt quarterbacks in Tannehill and Derek Carr. Let's move over to the running back position. Some of the value guys we're going to look at here. We got Antonio Gibson at 6,400. He's going to get a high usage. Philly's weakness is the run stopping ability, okay? So they're going to need to utilize this run game here. Antonio Gibson, he's got back-to-back games with over 14 rushing attempts. He's being utilized in the receiving game as well. And against a poor rushing defense in the Philadelphia Eagles, who have a great secondary, but up front they are opening up holes for opposing running backs. This is Washington's way of keeping this game close and keeping it competitive. Antonio Gibson at 6,400 is getting a very high usage and should definitely get you double-digit fantasy points. Hopefully he goes off, gets in the end zone a couple times, and he'll be a steal at his salary. I already spoke about Dameon Pierce, who we like. We already like Benjamin, who's a punt play that I spoke about at 4,700. That's if James Conner is out. And one more guy is going to be super, super sneaky is Zamir White. All right, Josh. No, that's the wrong White. Not Zaquandre. We're going with Zamir. Zamir White here for the Las Vegas Raiders. Their rookie running back with no Josh Jacobs is pretty much between Brandon Bolden and Zamir White here. He's going to get carries, all right? He's going to get carries. Zamir White at 4,000 salary is a punt running back that you can throw in there. If he gets you double-digit fantasy points, he's going to save you salary at other positions. Make sure on Sunday you pay attention that Josh Jacobs is officially out, but we have a punt option at running back for this week that we can look at. All right, let's go over to the wide receivers. One of my favorite wide receivers this week will be Treylon Burks. All right, there is no Kyle Phillips at wide receiver, so it's Robert Woods and Treylon Burks here, the 1-2 punch for the Tennessee Titans. Vaders, solid pass rushing, but poor in the secondary. Treylon Burks, we saw an increased usage from him from what we saw from week 1 to week 2 going up against the Buffalo's defense. 4 for 6 for 47. I liked what I seen out of him. They corrected his price back to 4,900, right below what he started at to begin the season at 5,000. And I think he's going to have a big game against the Raiders. Definitely watch out for him. This is a punt play, a flex play that you can have in each one of your lineups. He's going to get high upside. And for the Tennessee Titans to get off the schneid, to get things going, they need to open things up in the passing game. Treylon Burks opens that up, okay? You lose A.J. Brown, you draft Treylon Burks, you have to utilize him. And we saw week 1, we saw a bump there, and then we saw week 2, the changeover, and the fact that no Kyle Phillips. All those targets that went to him and all the looks, it's going to go to Treylon Burks, and I'm loving him at 4,900. He's going to be one of my main guys for this particular week at that salary at 4,900. Very cheap, very affordable. Drake London, for Atlanta is someone that could be a one-off in your lineups. As you build your stacks, you want to have guys that have high exposure. Between Drake London and Kyle Pitts, they've been working off each other. Kyle Pitts is still running routes, deep routes, and has been opening up things for Drake London. That's why he had such a great game for 8, 12, and 86 with a touchdown. So I see a good game for London. I see a bounce back game for Kyle Pitts as well. All right, so London at 5,800 is a solid play right there. If we're looking at some other cheaper plays, it's going to be Curtis Samuel, who's getting a ton of cheap targets. They're really focusing their offense around him. Just very cheap and easy targets. As long as he's healthy, he's going to be highly used. Between him and Ron Rivera, they have a great history going back to the Carolina Panthers. And this is a super explosive guy. 8 receptions, 11 targets, 55 yards, and a touchdown. Chipped in with rushing as well. And in week 2, it stayed at that high rate, 7 for 9 for 78 and a touchdown. He saw a rush attempt as well at 5,100. Still too cheap. He's got back-to-back 20 fantasy point games, and I'm loving him as a cheap guy at your wide receiver or flex position. Other guys we can look at. There is going to be, let's see, we could go to Cole Beasley this week. I don't think he's even in the slate. I don't think they don't even have him. So that would have been someone very sneaky to get. He's not even in the Tampa Bay slate. So we have big question marks on Tampa Bay's pass catchers. No Mike Evans, he got suspended. Russell Gage didn't practice Friday, so that's not good. Perryman is questionable. We'll see if he's someone. See, Perriman's questionable here. He might play. If he's in, is pretty much between him. And if I go to Tampa Bay, let's see. Go to Tampa Bay. They have no wide receiver depth. Chris Godwin's out. Mike Evans is out. Julio Jones is highly questionable. We don't know about him. And Gage is probably out. All right. He practiced Wednesday, Thursday, and then out Friday. That is a bad sign. That is not good. And they signed Cole Beasley. Cole Beasley would have been a great punt play for this week. He might go off because they literally have no other wide receivers. It's going to be Perriman if he plays, or Julio Jones. Just those two guys. And then Cole Beasley, pretty much. He's going to have to focus in on tight ends. That's why I don't want Tom Brady this week. It's going to be an ugly game with that Green Bay and Tampa Bay game. Probably low-scoring affair at 4 o'clock. All right. If we're looking at some other guys, on the other side, you could go with Romeo Doubs because of Green Bay's injuries. We don't know about Sammy Watkins is on the IR. He's going to be out. We got Romeo Doubs here, who was the preseason darling, and their offensive coordinator already came out and said he's going to be utilized more. So that's a positive to hear. At 3,800, he can become a punt play as well. And then one other punt play at wide receiver will be Jacoby Myers against Baltimore's poor defense. But you have to watch out for their corners coming back. So Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, if they come back, it's going to make things a little more difficult for Jacoby Myers. But if those guys are out, then you could go to Jacoby Myers at wide receiver for the New England Patriots. All right, so last but not least, let's finish off with the tight ends. I already spoke about Kyle Pitts. No one's going to be on him because of the poor performances that we saw in week 1 and week 2. Now he's at a new low price of 4,800, and he's someone that is going to be a bounce back candidate in week 3, okay? Just because you saw football for the first 2 weeks does not mean that's going to be the whole entire season. This is a very young season, all right? You don't know anything yet. So definitely go back to Kyle Pitts. Mark Andrews is at 6,900. He's not really a pump play, but he's definitely someone you need to focus in on against the New England Patriots. Definitely, I'd rather pay up for tight end this week. Some other cheap punt plays that we got will be Robert Tonyan, tight end for the Green Bay Packers, because they have so many injuries. This is someone that's getting back acclimated to the offense. We saw 5 targets in week 1, 2 targets in week 2. But with the injuries, Sammy Watkins and Randall Cobb, that's going to have Aaron Rodgers lean on more of the tight ends and his secondary wide receiver. So Tonyan at 3,700 is a punt play. And last but not least will be Evan Ingram for the Jacksonville Jaguars. he's been getting consistent usage. This is Doug Peterson. Okay, we saw Doug Peterson in Philadelphia. They utilize the tight ends at a very high rate, and they're doing that this year with Jacksonville Jaguars, as you can see, with Evan Ingram. 4 targets in week 1, 8 targets in week 2. So we see production from him at a very low price. Someone that can get you double-digit points and you save salary and pay up at other spots. I have no problem going with Evan Ingram. Just don't drop the football, pretty much. All right. So that is going to be the breakdown for week 3. Let's throw in the guys that I really like for this week and see what happens. All right. At quarterback, it was between Josh Allen, Kyler. We'll go with Kyler at 7,300. Running backs that I liked. I think Jonathan Taylor at 9,000. I'll pay up for him, no problem. If we're going to look for punt plays at running back, I think Pierce is in a good spot. I think we see him break out. Wide receivers, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown, who's here at 7,200. I love Elijah Moore, who's at 5,000. We can see a bounce back game from Jamar Chase as well. Let's see who else we can fit in here. Of course, I want Treylon Burks. I think he has a big game. This is not even a stack. This is just guys that I really like at each and every position. At tight end, I would either go Kelsey, Andrews. I like the value of Pitts. You could throw in a punt defense down here. Let's just say it would be, let's see. The Jaguars, we got the Colts. No, you don't want the Colts. All right, just for shits and giggles, we throw in the Texans. You still got $4,200 in salary for your flex, and I gave you a couple guys at this price range that you can fill in at that flex spot, and you filled out a lineup. Okay, you 100% fill out a lineup, and let's see what happens. I'll throw in one of these type of lineups. You can throw in whatever flex guy that I spoke about in this, and throw it in one of the tournaments. All right, and see what happens. Thank you guys for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Make sure you're following me on Instagram and Twitter at MessageSD. And I'll be back very, very soon with another video. All right. Peace out.